The main character have 3 girlfriends, because he was blessed by the god of harem. His girlfriends are very thirsty, and they always wanted to have some vanilla moments with our lucky man. In addition, his girlfriends are demi-humans. The main character's body contains an awakening essence for demi-humans, and because of that, he became popular among the female demi-humans. His body is releasing that aura every time, and the demi-chicks are craving to acquire his awakening milkshake. Suddenly, there was an explosion in the building. Then pink smoke was released in the atmosphere. The demi-humans have inhaled that mysterious gas, and they suddenly felt very sleepy. Also, his girlfriends were knocked out by the smoke. He was the last man standing, and he had no idea why everyone was role-playing as the sleeping beauty. Few days later, the main character was called over by the mothers of his girlfriends. The main character was greeted by Mommy Blue Hair, and her name is Mai. Then another mom appeared, and her name was Yasha. After that introduction, the black-haired woman suddenly suffocated the main character in her melons, and he was suffering from success. The blue-haired mommy got jealous, so she grabbed the main character, and suffocated him too. This two-woman rivalry continued, and the main character was squeezed between the mountain ranges. Another woman appeared, and she was the chocolate mom named Sally. It seems like she was the composed and elegant type of woman. Anyways, the main character was summoned here, because they will be discussing about the pink smoke incident. The pink smoke was caused by an accident in the chemical laboratory, and that pink smoke will burn out the mana of demi-humans. So, his girlfriends were entering a hibernation mode, and their lives were actually not at risk. However, there was a faster way to wake them up, and they will be needing the main character's power. His girlfriends are suffering with mana deficiency, so they only need to increase their mana to wake them up. This mommy spent days researching, and they found out that the omnipotent sacred milk can replenish his girlfriend's mana, and wake them up. In addition, that sacred lactose can only be produced by demi-human mother. However, they needed the main character's awakening milkshake to make the demi-human mothers produce that omnipotent sacred milk. In other words, the main character must clap his girlfriend's mothers to acquire the omnipotent sacred milk. Suddenly, Mommy Mai opened his under armor, and saw his raging sword. It turns out, the main character have not controlled his anger for an entire week, because his girlfriends are offline. The main character don't want to use his omnipotent sword in this situation, because he don't want to become the NTR man. However, the mommies were fine with it, since it was for the sake of saving their daughters. Eventually, the main character was now willing to do the clapping culture. Then the blue-haired woman immediately started her self-unboxing session. She gets to go first, because this was her house, so the other matured woman left and went home. Before the clapping ritual start, they prepared a lot of empty bottles to collect the omnipotent sacred milk. The main character was worried, so he asked if her husband would be fine getting the NTR culture. However, there was nothing for the main character to be worried at all, because her husband was a vampire who only wakes up every few years. This is a mess-up scenario, so the main character was only thinking of saving his girlfriends at this point. Then the ritual began, and she was a woman who wanted to be treated as a slave. The main character's little partner was now standing straight, and leaking the forbidden juice, so this woman was cleaning that leakage. After the cleaning session, she started her feeding session. The main character wanted to feed her with free milkshakes, but she cancelled his kindness, because she wanted him to fill her other mouth first. After that, she roleplayed as a female prisoner. Then she wanted the main character to become her commander. The main character told her to spread her wings, and this woman was wearing her triangle armor, because she was ashamed of her unstoppable water fountain. The main character single-handedly did an underwater cave inspection, and discovered an unlimited water spring. After that, she begged the main character to use his legendary sword in her. However, the main character let her do it herself. Then the main character proceeded with the standard clapping procedure, and gave her his fresh awakening milkshake. The main character took the empty bottles, and he started collecting her omnipotent sacred lactose. However, she was only summoning a few amount, so the main character used the thrust of destruction, and she was able to summon litters of omnipotent sacred lactose. After getting wrecked by the thrust of destruction, she wanted to receive more additional damage. Their battle lasted until morning, and the main character was buffed with unlimited stamina, so he was able to easily walk with full energy. Suddenly, Sally called him from the alley, because there is something she will privately talk with him. Despite being married and a mother, she have 0% experience points, and she has never seen a legendary sword before. She was a dragon demi-human, and in their culture they only use the injection method for multiplication. So, she wanted the main character to become her cultural teacher. They were on the alley, and she wanted some outdoor exposure. The main character was doubting his cultural powers, because he released a lot of milkshake last night. However, as a man of culture, he must do his job. She started doing her sword observation, but the main character's sword was sleeping. Then the main character let her kiss his sword in the form of Gulp Gulp 3000. In addition, the main character awakened his hibernating sword to suffocate her with happiness. After that, the main character asked her to showcase her underground cave, and the main character was personally inspecting that lucky spot. Then her underground cave was creating an underground water fountain. The basic steps are now completed, so the main character proceed to the clapping ritual, and eventually he gave her the awakening milkshake. Her melons are now ready to summon the omnipotent sacred milk, so they filled up the empty bottles in front of them. Then the main character rewarded her with an extra milkshake in her sacred sanctuary. In the next scenario, it was the turn of mommy Yasha. The main character was wet from the rain, so she decided that she will wash him up. Then they went to their indoor hot spring. She was washing the main character, and she was giving him a helping hand to properly wash his weapon. In addition, she was giving him a Gulp Gulp 3000 for clapping ritual preparation. After that, she ride on the Iron Pegasus with a very appropriate facial expression. Then the main character blasted her with his awakening milkshake. She was not contented yet, so she requested the main character for extra sauce. The clapping ritual was restarted again and again, and the main character was giving her liters of original and organic milkshake. Then the main character became so thirsty, so he was drinking the freshly squeezed milky melon juice. The clapping ritual have ended, and it was able to summon buckets of omnipotent sacred milk. After that, the main character continued doing the clapping exercises with his girlfriend's moms, to harvest a massive amount of omnipotent sacred milk. He was literally hard working, because this was for the sake of saving his hibernating girlfriends. Few days later, they have collected enough omnipotent sacred milk, and it was time to wake up the sleeping beauties. In addition, some of that sacred milk would be shared to other students who inhaled the pink smoke, and the male students would be very lucky to partake that sacred milk. Anyways, the mommies started feeding their daughters with the omnipotent sacred milk that they created. However, his girlfriends are not waking up immediately, because the effect is not instant. So, the mommies decided to use the main character's awakening milkshake, because they recently learned that it can also support the power of the omnipotent sacred milk. In addition, it will be more effective if his girlfriend will drink the awakening milkshake straight from the source. Then colored blue mommy single-handedly assisted his rod, and she was using her oral summoning skills. Eventually, she was able to summon the main character's awakening milkshake, and they feed that directly to his sleeping girlfriend. Next, it was Chocolate Mom, and she used her special verbal summoning method. The awakening milkshake summoning was a success, and it was directly fed to the sleeping girlfriend number 2. Lastly, it was mommy Yasha, and she will be using her sacred sanctuary to summon his awakening milkshake. In addition, they were clapping above the face of the main character's girlfriend. Then the clapping summoning method was successful, so the main character was able to feed his girlfriend number 3 with his freshly created awakening milkshake. After that, the main character have a multiplayer game with his girlfriend's moms. Eventually, his girlfriends have awakened from their hibernation, and his girlfriends saw a clapping event in front of them. However, his girlfriends did not get angry. Instead, they are willing to share the main character to their mom. Then all of them wanted to be pumped, until they transform into a balloon. It was turned into an organizational group activity, and luckily the main character was blessed with the unlimited stamina to keep up with their hunger. That's the end of this cultural anime recap, and here is your research material. Lesson learned: with great stamina comes with great benefits.